Welcome to the Great Distraction.
What's up, folks? This is The Great Distraction, and today the topic of discussion is the impact of cell phones. My name is Ben, and with me today are my co-hosts Joe,
Hey,
Thomas,
hey,
and Glenn.
How's it going, folks?
If this is your first time listening, welcome. We thank you for joining us. The Great Distraction is a podcast that focuses on a vast and random range of topics, and we hope that each episode leaves you with, if nothing else, something to ponder. So this is an extremely broad subject. We can go a lot of different ways with it, but we've each got our own little direction we're going to take it today. And I just thought I'd start us off real quick with, before we head into the topic, with a couple of random facts that I found out when I was kind of doing a little bit of research.
Give us your report, Doctor.
Yeah, that's it. By no means is this inclusive or conclusive. It's just kind of out there and random. But I thought these are very interesting points to note. So apparently the world's first cell phone was launched in 1983, and it was the Motorola Dynatac 800X. It sold for around $4,000 and had a battery life, rather a talk time, of 30 minutes before it was just completely dead. And they made an interesting note that it was about the size of a foot-long sub from Subway. So I was like, all right, had some girth to it, right?
So is that the one in the briefcase?
No,
yeah,
I think it's later.
That was later, I think. This one may have had a battery pack that was with it as well. I didn't actually look up the picture for this. I did find that they, like we used to call them back in the day, they were initially marketed and sold and developed for the purpose of being car phones. They weren't really, meant to be mobile just yet. Walk around and that did last for a minute, but I mean they were so expensive, very few people bought them and put them in their phones, in their cars. And so arguably there were a couple of what might be the first smartphones. This particular article noted in 1993 the IBM Simon or Simone, I'm not really sure how that was pronounced, as what could have been the first cell phone. So that puts it back in 1993. For what could be where the whole smartphone movement came. In that time, it says that there were 50,000 sold in the U.S. between its lifetime, which was August to 1994 to February 95, so it's not that long at all.
Wow.
It said that it had
24 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. It said it had a retail...
That's a long time.
It had
24 years.
It had a retail price of $900 on a 2-year contract. They had contracts still apparently back then too, or $1,100 without a contract. So that's in their time back then. So that's kind of an interesting spin.
Good God.
Yeah, that's what, and kind of an interesting.
You really were a baller if you had one of those.
Yeah, and that's an interesting spin on today's $1,000 plus cell phones like the iPhone X. Not to date the podcast, but we're now with that iPhone X coming out, we have broken the $1,000 barrier. That was a big deal that they had done. And then it goes on to name all kinds of ones that you might remember, like the Motorola Razr. That was a huge deal, and that was in 2004, being like that super slim phone. Then back in '97, the Motorola StarTAC, the one that looked like a Star Trek communicator that flipped open. That was
a flip phone?
Yeah, the Star Trek. Well, it was a thin-looking clamshell, weird-looking phone, but it was very, very popular. A lot of people had that. And, of course, the one that really changed the whole world in multiple ways was in 2008 when the Apple iPhone 3G came out. I believe the first Apple iPhone was 2004, though. I might be wrong on that. I don't have that number in front of me. But the 3G was the one that everybody jumped on board with in 08. And then from there, they just kept getting bigger and smaller, and there were a few that are
faster and stronger,
and better cameras, and
they got smaller, then they got bigger, then they got smaller, then they got bigger,
and more intrusive as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
And through it all, battery life got longer, so you were enabled to stay on it and use it more and
be listened to for longer amounts of time.
That's right. And meanwhile, and behind the scenes, the network got better and better, so they could make sure that all that data was that you were sucking down or sending out got to where it needed to go. And
Fast.
and they continue to make those improvements. I know 5G is being rolled out in the towers and stuff, and now as we speak, the next LTE. I don't know what the acronym for it is or whatever, but I've heard it noted.
So what
5G.
what does 4G really mean? I'm not a super tech head.
It's there. Well, and I'm not going to claim I know everything about it, but there's it was a coined, marketed, patented, whatever you want to call it, term or copyrighted term from one carrier. And I don't remember who. Maybe that was AT&T, and then LTE was coined by Sprint, and then I think Verizon had their own flavor. But essentially, it was all the same
their
thing.
Trademarked brand.
That's all it was. Yeah.
Service.
As these new
Pepsi versus Coke. Huh?
They're all the same. It's funny as they probably have all been the same quality service this whole time, and they just keep putting a number on it.
So what it is
selling it to you for a higher,
right? Wait till 7 comes out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing.
So as I understand it from my I have a few buddies who worked in cellular telecommunications companies and doing engineering with them. As I understand it, they the hardware is the hardware. It's kind of like if you buy the next processor. If you buy a Dell server, or you buy or you build your own server at home, you may be buying the same hardware that's in those two. What you coin it as, Dell's like, oh, this is our Experian server, and versus what you buy at home. Oh, that's your put together server. The processors are Intel processors. So if you go buy the same Xeon processor that's in the Dell server and put it in your server at home, you guys are using the same hardware. You're just coined a different term if you buy it from this one or that one. That might not be a great example, but so
my pants are blue, your pants are.
But they're both pants. And let's say you're both wearing pants that are made of the same G material.
Exactly.
That's kind of the same thing. So as these cell phone companies roll out, they're not making the hardware. Now they may have influence in the hardware that's made, but like Qualcomm is making the hardware or whatever. So as they go through and they roll out in their shacks and their towers or whatever, it's the same next generation hardware. They're just marketing it to their customers under a different name. And right now, as they're rolling out the 5G stuff, it's just different hardware, updated hardware with faster
hardware.
speed. Yeah, but they're all going to market it as their own separate. Like, oh, well, we have. And it's kind of like, dude, you all have the same thing. I mean, you're not really more advanced than the others.
Yeah.
It's how many towers do they have, and how thoroughly created and dense is their network.
So for me, my first need for a cell phone, I guess, or desire to have a cell phone was sort of based on that theory of like, can I use this everywhere?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like, and I remember the earlier cell phones like, oh, it didn't get reception here, it don't get reception there. Or maybe, Singular only had coverage on the East Coast or whatever.
Yep.
And that becoming a universal thing. And for me, that to have a cell phone meant having like a way to call for like a tow truck or something traveling.
It was a safety thing. It was a safety because it was expensive back in the day.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a luxury.
Still is, though. A little bit of a safety thing, for sure.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It still has that aspect, for sure.
It's too much of a safety thing.
And then, you think about just
it's
maps.
like a safety net.
Right, well, totally. You think about just the Maps app alone, you remember those things we used to have, Thomas guides?
Yeah, I own several of them.
Yep.
You made them.
Yeah, right. Never mind.
Yeah, nobody's got those anymore. You don't see those anymore. That company's probably defunct.
Well, they moved on to doing digital mapping.
GIS stuff.
Yeah, but see, nowadays too, you're saying safety net, like you lose your phone or your phone dies, and you don't have to recharge it, You
go ask random people, hey, can I use your phone? And they're like, no.
Like
that's
you're
weird.
on crack or something.
Yeah, that's really weird, dude.
And I just ran out of blood. I need some of yours.
God, I'm unplugged.
Yeah. So do you recall what year you got your first cell phone? Any of you guys?
I do.
What year?
Well, so this was something I was thinking about earlier. I got a cell phone because my mom has always been she's always been a little bit into like technology kind of things. And when cell phones first started coming out, she wanted one because she had, in the 90s, had one of those car phones that you carry.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She just, she thought it was cool to have something she could call for 911 as a woman. She was just like, it was great. So she worked out a way that she could buy that so she could always have one in her car in case it ever broke down. It was totally about safety. And that was in the 90s. And so I remember she got a family plan through some sort of phone service and was like, hey, I got 2 phones. I want you to have this one because I lived out of state. And I was like, okay, but I lived in Cleveland at the time. She lived in Indianapolis, and I could barely get service with that phone.
Nice.
And this was in 2000.
Okay, 2000.
And so I was like, yeah, whatever. I threw it in a drawer. It lived in a drawer forever. I never used it. And then in 2001, I moved back to Indianapolis, and started using it because other people I knew had one. When I was in Cleveland, nobody else I knew had a cell phone.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, well,
who are you going to call?
Who am I going to call?
Landlines, but yeah.
But so that was the first time. And I was also, you know, had moved back to another city. I was single. Mm-hmm. You know, I was hanging out with people, doing things, running around.
You wanted to look like you were money?
Had to get on Tinder.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to be able to communicate with people. And that was when people were really first starting to have cell phones. And it was a small, you know, you had to, if you were going to text somebody, you had to hit the 2 button 3 times.
Yeah. To get a C.
To get a C.
Yeah. Before T9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw them, you know, come in. And I remember exactly what year it was. But before that, I had zero use for it. And I just kind of like, I feel like I progressed through all the changes since 2001 with a phone. I've had one ever since.
Yep. Yeah, I started in 2001.
17, 18 years now.
I started in 2001 also. I had was the first Samsung flip phone.
I think I had one of those.
Paid like $400 for that stupid thing with the extra battery and all this other crap. And but I was a Sprint rep at the time, and that was how it was like $20 a month I paid for that bill. And I mean, it gave me X number of minutes, and it also had what was called back in the day WEP, WEP, and WEP was your first text-based internet. Basically you were logging onto Sprint servers. It was all text-based. You could check movie times. You could check out get some jokes.
I remember. I think I can.
Yeah, it was just like some little text-based, and it wasn't internet. It was really just their servers, you know. But it was called WEP. Yeah, and it
you
had
could
that
call
on that
somebody
phone.
and sort of look for.
Yeah. And I remember you could text message, but there was nobody to text message. So like I did, you couldn't cross network. Send text messages.
Yeah, dating girls at that time is what introduced me to text messaging.
Yeah. Well, being in school too. At that
I'll
time,
be there in 20.
Yeah. Well, I was in school, so it was giving me something to
by
do.
the
I
liquor
could
store.
Talk to people, you know, without having to call them or whatever. Do you guys remember Joe Glenn?
I think it was 2000, between like 2003, 2004.
Okay, so you were all about the same time then. What'd you have?
It was a Motorola flip phone. It was black with a little clear screen thing, and I think I broke like 4 of them.
Nice.
Kept taking falls or whatnot and smashing them inside my pocket.
Yeah, they were really delicate back then, man. They really couldn't take a beating.
Could not take a hit.
No.
But my dad decided that he wanted me to have it while I was driving.
Sure.
Because it was right when I got my driver's license.
Sure.
And
yeah. And he's never been right in the mind since.
Yeah, pretty much.
Joe, do you remember?
I think it was one that you gave me after you upgrade or something. I don't remember the year though. No.
Yeah.
No, I do remember the first phone I bought for myself was the iPhone. The first iPhone.
I remember when you brought that.
Yeah,
home.
that was cool. A metal back.
Yeah, that thing was nuts, man. It
was cool.
Nobody ever seen anything like that before. It was just all solid screen, color display.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember chasing PDAs back in the day with like the compact iPack or the Palm Trio, or the Palm Pilots. Those ones, and when those started rolling out with color displays, man, people were going nuts for those things. Just to see a color display in your hand was like just as crazy as when the first color displays for computers came out. We moved away from monochrome, amber, and green monitors. I mean,
right? Yeah, I think that was one of the best examples of marketing working on me in my life, because I saw that thing. I was like, that is legit. Had to have one. It was a lot of money I had to shell out at first to like get it and everything, but it was really cool. I thought it was just a really cool device, and the whole thing just warped my mind a little bit, you know, because of it was just leaps and bounds ahead of its predecessor. And one of the things that would always stuck out is when I first got that cell phone, it couldn't text message pictures.
Yeah, no.
So you had to, instead of a picture, it would text message you a link.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you'd have to click on the link and sign into your account, and then you could see the picture online.
Yeah. It also didn't have
ridiculous.
It didn't have apps in the beginning either.
Oh no.
Yeah, there was no app store back then.
Not like nowadays.
But I mean, the iPhone still looked like it had little bubbles for the apps. You know, if you wanted to go to your phone, but it didn't have apps you could download. And stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it was like an iPod combined with a phone.
Basically, that's basically what it was. Yeah, it had a little bit. You could surf the internet, you know, and it had a Wi-Fi. So I mean, it did a little bit more. But yeah, that was.
And then another major thing is because I've always been into music, and you know, before that I had a couple mini disc players. Always had a nice CD player. But one of the big improvements it made on my life was the ability to incorporate the iPod with the phone. I mean,
that was a huge selling point for me.
Yeah, instead of carrying around a phone and an iPod, you had it just all right there. It was legit. You know, it was a huge impact on my life, and always has been since. I take music everywhere I go. You know, I'm always listening to music.
I laugh at myself now that I actually have an iPhone. Back when the MP3 players and the iPods were big, I made fun of everybody that had an iPod.
Oh, you didn't like iPods?
Oh no, I mean they were cool and they were the hip thing.
That 20 gig one, I loved that.
You know
thing,
what,
dude?
My cheap ass MP3 player had twice the storage space and it cost me a fraction of the price.
Yeah, if it was the solid state ones, but the ones that had the hard drives, that was one of the ones I like. You just had to be careful with them. Like people would go running with them and they would damage them because they were jumping all over the place. Yeah.
Right, they just stopped working.
Yeah. Okay, so we've already gone down the first one of the biggest impacts that cell phones have made in everyone's life. I mean, obviously being there, but that whole safety thing right there, that was the
I think that was a selling point.
That was
kind of like the war on drugs.
The easiest sell. Yeah, exactly. That was the easiest sell right there, was to convince people, hey man, I mean, this is safety. You know, you want your kid to have it, you should have it.
Your mom should not be in her car without a cell phone. Anything could happen.
Your elderly mother should not be alone in her house without a cell phone. You know, I mean, just in case something. I mean, there's every aspect of safety on the job, driving a long road trip, whatever.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a huge impact. And I mean, I think I'd have to go. I think I'd have to vote that it did increase safety in our general lives. I mean, how many people have been able to call an ambulance when they saw an accident, or all the other things? So I mean, okay, that one I'll buy. You know, sure, it made us safer. Okay, but there were a lot of other implications as time has gone on. We've gotten more and more in depth and embedded in these things. So we remember when text messaging started off, but I don't really remember people being so head down, lost in their phones when there was just text messaging.
Because it wasn't as much. It's like a television now. So the way I equate it is
better than
a
television.
Absolutely better than a television. But I equate it the same way. Like, look how much control television has over a lot of people,
totally,
especially small kids and stuff. So now you put that in the palm of your hand, and you have the remote as well.
Yeah, I think it's been a progressive thing, Ben, for sure. Because I mean, people would text message every now and then, and you'd see people in class sneaking a quick text message, but nothing like it is nowadays.
And maybe okay, so you guys bring up the television thing and all the power, like you have the remote. Like, that's a good analogy. When we started off with cell phones, they were like little monochrome displays that we text message. I mean, there was really nothing else to do.
It looked like an electric phone.
Yeah.
Like
maybe a calculator.
Yeah,
they didn't have the overactive stimulus. It wasn't.
All you wanted to do was get that stupid text message out, and you were done. There was nothing else to do with the phone. I mean,
I think at that point, and you needed to call them back.
I think at that point, it wasn't triggering the reward center in the brain. It wasn't that dopamine dump that I think you see with apps and social media nowadays.
It wasn't until like the Nokia 5100 series, 5000 series came out that people would play Snake. Yes.
Actually, there was quite a bit of dopamine dumping while I was playing Snake. That's for damn sure. I like that game. Everybody stressing.
That was like the only game you could play on them, though. I mean, very few cell phones had games, and the Nokias always put that in their operating system. So who the heck didn't play Snake, and who didn't want a Nokia phone? And then when it got better, if you were on Verizon or the CDMA companies, because you could do the light up antennas and the light up batteries and all this other stuff that would just get you like, that phone's really cool. And the custom faceplates. Remember the faceplates, right? You can't. Nobody even does face. Well, now they do covers or back, cases.
Probably
or
cases.
whatever,
But,
cases. But I mean faceplates, dude. I mean, that was huge. You could go in every mall in the country with little pagoda stands and find a Mickey Mouse faceplate for your grandma. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Look how far we've come.
So have you ever stopped to think that we might be one of the last generations that ever experienced talking to a significant other on the family landline and having like your mom or dad pick up and listen in?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the next generations are going to miss out on that awesome experience.
Was that an awesome experience? I don't know.
I'll tell you,
shut up. I'm trying to spit game. Hang up the phone.
I'll tell you what wasn't awesome was when I was trying to download a single MP3 that took like 4 hours, and mom would pick up the phone, need to use it to call grandma or something, and destroy my whole download. Yeah, that's not awesome.
Damn parents.
I know.
Trying to look at porn on 56K.
Trying to get
that ASCII porn. Trying to get my dad to buy a second line for the house just so I could surf the internet. which never flew. Which never happened. Yeah, so those days. I'm glad those days are over, but
come on, they're classic.
I do kind of miss the landline, the concept of a home phone. I mean, that was kind of nice, I guess.
No, it wasn't.
But
that's just called nostalgia. Leave it where it belongs in the past.
The 90s called. They want their phones back.
It seems like the home environment is deteriorating in this country.
Yeah,
everybody's.
Well, you're talking about a whole bigger thing.
But it touches on it. I mean, the cell phones are a bridge
and
into
the tablets.
it.
Yeah. So there's an interesting transition because one begat the other, right? I don't know where you guys were, but I remember distinctly exactly where I was sitting while I was watching the Apple release event, because I've been watching those things for years, those conventions when I saw Steve Jobs pull out the iPad. And all of us said the same damn thing. Why do I need a larger iPhone? I mean, wait, it doesn't run OS X? It's not a full computer? Why do I need a larger iPhone?
Yeah.
But the answer is nobody needs one.
No. And just like nobody needed the first iPhone, but when they saw it, it was, apparently we did need this all along in our lives because everybody bought one, right? We all convinced ourselves and we found a means to use it. And it was just something we'd never seen before. So it was like, wow, this is convenient in a lot of ways, and it basically changed the world. So we wouldn't have either of them, had one,
without Steve Jobs.
Without Mr. Jobs. Yeah, there you go.
What a dick.
I wonder if Apple will have any more truly groundbreaking discoveries that actively shape modern, culture and how we interact with people now that Steve Jobs is gone. That's going to be very interesting for me to see.
Whatever they're working on in their R&D, or any of these other companies are working on in the R&D, unless it's to the level of, and I don't know how many people out there have seen it, but you should if you haven't. Unless it's to the level of Black Mirror type stuff with retinal overlays, and
that's kind of what I was thinking next.
If it ain't that stuff,
will it be Apple? Is what I question.
All we're going to keep getting is the same revamped hardware. Oh, it's got a glass back this time. Oh, it's got a face scanning technology. The camera is now 20 megapixels instead of 12. Or,
why can't I look down at it and be a hologram now already? Some interactive
maybe
3D
that's
space
what it is. It's some sort of hologram. Maybe that's what I thought they were going with the watch. When Apple did the watch thing, I thought they were, there's an old science fiction where you'd have like a watch and it would do like a hologram
projection. Yeah, you've seen too much science fiction. We're not there yet.
Yeah, the holograms kind of died. Not to go too far off topic, but do you remember the hologram arcade games that were like? Did you ever see those?
A little,
Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
Oh no, well not the Virtual Boy was really just kind of lines drawn 3-dimensionally or whatever. But the actual hologram, you used to go to the arcade and you'd see this big white. The one I used to play was a Western. And it was like the size of this table. It was a big old half-circle dome, and the whole thing was shaded inside. And it had a flat area that was blank until you put in the money and turn it on. It was like $2 back when games actually cost like 25 cents. It was expensive, yeah. But it was like a kind of a decision-making game, and the figures would pop up just like the old school holograms that we used to see, and you would make your moves or whatever. And it was a Western, so you're trying not to get shot. You would hide behind a rock, and I can't remember what it was called. I've never seen it.
Definitely
since.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird, but that was an actual 3D hologram game, and they disappeared after that.
Side note, you guys have got to check out the PlayStation VR.
Dude, I was thinking about buying a PS4 actually. I don't really keep up with the console games anymore, but yeah, I keep hearing that thing. Yeah, but so you buy a PS4? Let's get way off topic. But I mean, you're looking at like $600-700 after you're done buying all that. And it's like
I've
pricey.
had a PS4 for days, but
well, I also heard that the new one it's a little choppy on the older one, so that's why people are saying that you should get the Pro or whatever. Anyway, yeah, sorry.
Can't you do that on your phone?
Yeah. Actually, yes, you can. There's Samsung's got the VR mode or whatever for the cell phone. So it even goes into that angle. Yeah. It breaks into that market. If you keep going further into the future.
Those displays kind of suck though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, though, because it's just like a piece of cardboard that holds it on your head in front of your face.
Yeah, silly.
It's kind of silly. They're working on. I read that they're working on a couple of companies are working on actual VR headsets that plug into your phone so that you can FaceTime in 3D. Yeah, I don't
watch porn in 3D.
Yeah, watch porn in 3D. It's all about porn.
That's what all technology is about.
The porn industry is has definitely shaped that. That's why we all needed tablets after that.
Dude, you gotta have something to bring the bathroom.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can take that in the bathroom and it's larger. When there was one of these things that one of these facts that was brought up. As a matter of fact, here it is right here. In 2011, we had an interesting change in technology, and that was the Samsung Galaxy Note. And the reason that was interesting is because I don't know if you guys remember seeing that. I don't think too many people bought it, to be honest, but it was like the size of an iPad mini. It was large, and it was a phone. And when it came out, we all thought it was ridiculous, but apparently it had some preemptive value to it because, lo and behold, then they went down to a 5.3 inch, it says, and then from there they continued going back up, and now we're at like 6 for the Plus, right? Isn't the iPhone Plus and the new Galaxy 9 Plus, they're not 6-inch displays, aren't there? 5.5 to 6-inch, whatever they are.
Yeah,
so that seems to be the
got a ruler?
sweet. Yeah. Why? What do you want to measure here?
Well,
something 5 inches.
Yeah.
I got nothing that small.
They seem to have settled on that size range between the 5 to 6-inch.
There's probably been a study done. What people will and won't, and I think sometimes with that, when Jobs came out with the iPad, I think sometimes things like that, I feel like they're tests because they know people are going to buy it, but how much will they use it, and how okay, we've got this product we're developing, we don't really know how it can work. We like it or whatever, it's a need, it's whatever. Let's just sell it, and I think that's what Apple does with a lot of their stuff, just like the iPad.
And that's very
and just
bold.
watch how people do. What do they do with it, and then we can make our adjustments on that product based on what people seem like they like using it for.
Yeah, and that's a very bold approach because not too many companies are willing to take that
You're
risk.
Apple, why not?
Yeah. And
you could sell crap. It's like Andy Warhol of phones at this point.
Yes.
I am thrilled with the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
The stylus is
that thing is cool.
I have been waiting for that.
That's not a rechargeable stylus, is it?
It is.
It is. Okay.
Oh, it does have a battery in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
I have
like
a Samsung one at home, and it doesn't have the stylus is not chargeable.
So, but
you don't have to charge it
with the active,
but it's pretty nice.
So with the active stylus, though, I think they get a lot more resolution and pressure sensitivity out of it, and all those fancy features because it has the ability to power itself and have circuitry in it that reports all that crap back.
And it has a Bluetooth connection.
So I was going to say that it's Bluetooth connected. Yeah.
So how much life you get out of one of those on a charge?
If I give it a full charge, it lasts pretty long.
Definitely not charging it every time you use it.
No. It's I'll put it in the back of my tablet and screw around, and I'll come back like 2 days later and grab it.
It's still good.
It's still going.
That opens up a whole nother door and a whole other use of the tablets, and then I bet phones. I bet eventually they'll be compatible with the phones to some degree too, or another company will come out with that and tie that back into allow you to use it for other things as well. Okay, so. Yeah, we've got a lot of. We all know a lot of the ways we've implemented these things in our world, and then we're not even touching on the whole social media and that stuff. Before we even go down that route, something Joe and I both intended to bring up here was I'm going to kind of take a different angle on it than he might, but we had both heard of a lot of tech leaders in this country and in other countries avoiding. Letting their children play with any of these color display devices until they're much older. And what did you hear about that exactly? I mean, anything you look here?
I just find that to be an interesting twist on things because there is research coming out that it's creating addictive tendencies in children who start using them heavy from a young age. And then when you think about it, it kind of ties into video games and social media as well. That triggering of the reward center, anything like that can alter the way the brain functions from then on out. That brain constantly seeks that endorphin, that dopamine dump. And then to hear that being said about, tech leaders, they have a lot of insight into the industry. They're basically on the forefront of it. So that held quite a bit of bearing for me.
Yeah. And Steve Jobs was also quoted, as well as others. He was quoted saying in the Walter Isaac's book that we've read about, and then also in various interviews over the years that he doesn't allow his children to use specifically his own iPad,
right?
And then during certain times and whatever. There was a number of different quotes that people had caught him on, and so. What were you going to say something, Thomas? I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I heard a little bit about that as well over the years, and kind of just paying attention to what people thought about things. But, I think, what it is, the addiction that it does to people is just like gambling or sugar or any of those other things too, especially for kids that are super impressionable. But I wish I could remember exactly what it was. I read a couple of things that talked about the screen and how, especially in a small developing mind because of your eyes and everything else, how the colors and everything sort of, what it does to your vision and what it does sort of to the makeup of how things are, I guess, for lack of a better term, processed through your brain. Because of this it's fake, it's man-made versus nature, and what we've seen as the sun and the sky and the stimulant and stuff like that.
Definitely higher.
So, yeah, I mean, because the one thing that I think a lot of tech people understand that doesn't get brought up when it comes to cell phones and things like that, we are altering our human body and existence in ways that we don't really know yet. The contaminations of these sort of things, just like nuclear energy and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're introducing to humans that I don't think for a very long time we're going to really understand what they're doing. But I feel like the light, for me, like if I'm on a computer for a long period of time, which I have been recently, or on a pad or a phone like that, when I put it down, it to me, it isn't just the light change, when you go from outdoors to indoors kind of thing. It isn't just that. I feel like there's something else happens.
It's boring. Life looks boring around us.
Maybe
we're not staring at that display.
But I think it's just something to do with, I don't know if it's the retinal ability to the screens.
It takes a moment to like readjust.
Yeah, and it changes things. And I feel like it's almost like a separate reality. And I think that the longer that you're in the phone, because there's times when I've really in the last couple of months been trying to cut myself back on phone usage. Social media, anything like that, because I don't get anything else done. You can get these addictions just like sitting down and watching a movie, like, oh, I really got into that show. 4 hours later, there's your whole Saturday. But, I think that's happening with phones, and it's pulling in there and it's changing the way we see things, we understand things, the way we want things.
Yeah.
And just that whole like psychological path. I think that in the developing minds, I feel like that's part of that too. You're training somebody. We're training ourselves to be different humans with all of this.
I feel like the most apparent example of that is just on a social level. If you go into like a busy coffee shop or something, there's a lot of people looking at devices versus sitting around and talking and interacting with one another.
Communicating.
And I think that's just a very small example of a very big picture,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's definitely isolating too, I think, and that's one of the things I think is terrible about it, is people get locked in this little thing. Oh, their whole world's here. Maybe they're shy or they're just kind of an introvert or whatever, but now they've got this world they can be a part of, and so they're gonna pull themselves in even more because they don't have to talk to anybody. They can send a message or whatever, or text something, or look something up online, or find out. The one of the things I think cell phones is doing is making it so it's supposed to bring people together. It's like the social media, but it's making it easier for people to be separatists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know so many people. One of the things that a lot of people mention about life in general, and like one of the struggles maybe that they have, is isolation. People are lonely. People become lonely in life, and I think that can just only help to perpetuate it.
Right?
Yeah. Anytime I find myself at like you said, a coffee shop, or if sometimes I'm at a bar and maybe my buddies are outside, I'm waiting for a drink or whatever, and it's just that awkwardness of me sitting there by myself. You get that initial urge to just your hand starts moving down into your pocket,
to your holster.
Your holster.
I just want to see what time it is.
I'm just gonna look at the time, or I'm just gonna stare at this thing. And the minute I have to remind myself, don't pull that damn thing out. You are way more approachable. You are way more likely to talk to somebody else if you are not staring at the phone. But the minute you pull it out, you create an isolated chamber around yourself. That is, anyone who sees you is, even if they don't look negatively at you because you're looking at your cell phone, they look at you like, well, you're busy.
Yeah.
You're not available to interact with right now. So I'm just going to not talk to you. And I'm going to go look over at somebody else, or I'm going to pull out my phone and do the same damn thing, one or the other, right?
Mm-hmm. Which, really really sucks, because I do remember a time when we didn't have cell phones. Most of my 20s were spent without a cell phone.
Yeah.
And I remember going to places and going to bars and hanging out.
And I could get a girl's attention who was sitting there by herself.
Yeah, because there wasn't something on a screen that was the Kardashians or something else to keep their attention. You could, when you went out to socialize, you saw people. When you were out in the world, you talked to people. You looked at people's eyes.
Yeah.
You made real contact with them.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing about cell phones, I think, for me, that I see really taking away from us as a culture, is we're losing that, and that's super important.
Yeah, I want to take a couple steps back though to what you were talking about with the research that you had been the long-term effects of staring at this type of stimuli. So right off the bat, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not claiming it ain't real. Because I believe that there has to be effects on us, especially in early development stages.
It's the processing.
Yeah, so I was researching for a couple hours today, trying to find studies or anything that looked scientific other than just articles that referenced, crap that they pull out of whoever knows where, Facebook articles, right, that are unverified. Yeah, exactly. Or other articles. I wasn't looking on Facebook, but for example, and a lot of what I found pointed back to a few large proponents of people who were promoting this addiction and the bad stuff that we've been hearing, right? And unfortunately, one of the largest ones actually writes books on it that he sells and makes money off of, and also runs a rehab center, which is like tens of thousands of dollars a month to get your people, whoever it is you're concerned about this addictive nature to so in his best interest, he's
help them.
promoting for somebody to come up with anything, there's somebody's profiting off of it. There's no such thing as a disease or a sickness or an illness or anything that has been created that wasn't partially created because somebody can get rich off of it. And so I did see a lot of that, and that sucked, because I'm sure some of that's true. And I'm sure that those who don't want that truth to get out, or that negative outlook on cell phone usage, are going to latch onto that. Look, he's a fake. He's out,
Yeah.
But there is, they're making it shady, dude. Like, okay, taking it back with related cell phones still. Is cell phone radiation bad for us? Is it causing cancer?
Absolutely.
Whatever happened to that? There were so many studies on both sides, and after time, once we heard, yes, no, they're safe, they're not. After we heard that 1 million times, nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's like an unanswerable question. They made it an unanswerable question.
It's true.
They
just got us distracted by something else.
The great distraction, man.
Yeah, that's it. Once the phone became so important, nobody cared if it was causing you cancer or not. I mean,
or shrinking your testicles in your pocket.
We still don't even know whether or not, and we do know that radiation levels from it have been dropping. So that makes it very difficult too, because the cell phone you carry in your pants, 20 years ago or 10, 15 years ago, whatever, outputs more radiation than the ones do now. So now we have a really skewed long-term effect that we can't really. And then whose fault was it? Is it Motorola's? No, you only had that phone for a year. So what was after that? Samsung?
Yeah, but you're getting an X-ray for a year.
Yeah, exactly. So who do you blame for that? You can't, because every year you get a new cell phone. So whose problem was it?
Well, there's also been a lot of studies too, and I've read several of those recently, where they're studying the effects of Wi-Fi on people. Yeah, like sleep patterns, all kinds of other stuff, because just the Wi-Fi in general.
Radio frequency communication, it's everywhere.
It's like a microwave.
And it's getting more and more dense with all of the cell towers that are being put in too, to keep these networks more active. One of the concepts behind radio RF communication is typically when you go up in frequency, which can yield you higher speeds, which is typically why we go, like the new the first standard for 802.11b for Wi-Fi was 2.4 gigahertz, and then we went up to 802.11n, I think, is what we're mostly common with, and that's a 5.8. Well, they're doing the same thing. They've changed the frequencies over the years in the same way with cell phones. Well, a lot of times when you do that, your propagation of your signal doesn't go as far. It doesn't go as easily through walls and stuff, right? So you need more access points or more towers. So as we continue increasing speeds, we need more towers to maintain those speeds, no matter, depending on where you are, and to keep you closer to these towers. So now you're potentially increasing radiation exposure. However, the same argument is going to go back in reverse, where, yes, this is newer, but this technology is newer. It actually needs to output less radiation to maintain these higher frequencies. So, and unless you can go do your own independent RF study and pull everything yourself, and then on top of that, let's say you do get a radiation level number of how much your exposure level is. We don't know what the long-term exposure or what that means. It translates to in the long term, right? So we don't have any answers for that, and it just keeps getting more and more grayed out. And we don't even know if these things are safe to use still, and that's a concern we've had for the last 20 years.
Yes.
Oh, they're definitely not safe to use.
Yeah, really. If they're not safe for you due to radiation, they're not safe for you due to the psychology.
How many people have died because of cell phone use while driving?
That's a real.
Definitely higher than the amount of people from weed.
I mean, I see people walking down the street with their face buried in their cell phone,
dude,
and they won't even look up as they're crossing the street.
Yeah, they get hit by trains, dude.
Oh yes, I can attest to that.
By trains. Yeah.
I almost run into somebody almost every fucking day downtown driving through here, because some idiot will be crossing the road.
Yeah,
looking at the cell phone, and I'm like, it says no walk, and 6 other cars just went by. I just happened to be the one closest to you.
And was paying attention. Yeah, and
was paying attention.
Yeah.
I've had drivers run me off the road while I was on my motorcycle.
Oh, yeah,
Because they are staring at their phone. They are not checking their mirrors. They're and somebody glances down, and they think it's just a moment, or, a quick glance. But that quick glance, man, if you're traveling
70 miles an hour.
Dude, you've gone hundreds of feet.
Yeah, and what's worse too about that is with more and more things getting integrated. So let's say you're not tweeting on your phone while you're driving, but your music
What?
is you're not. But your music is probably coming from your phone. So want to change a song, want to change a station? It's not as easy as it used to be with just hit the little dial on your dash or whatever. No, you got to pick up the phone, open Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, whatever, Amazon Music, whatever the heck you're using, or YouTube if you actually stream for the
while
YouTube.
You're trying to merge on 80.
Yeah, while you're trying to merge on the freeway at 80 miles an hour or wherever you're from.
And a
maybe
stick shift, drinking coffee, light a cigarette.
That's it, with your McDonald's sausage egg McMuffin in your lap, eating your hash brown, and there's just more integration into these phones that require you to use them to get your daily things done.
But it's taken more of our time, and for me, I think that's the bigger picture that I don't think a lot of people understand is, we've got all those great things, and we can point out 100 cool things about cell phones. I can all day long, but the thing is, it distracts you. Like I really have to be accountable to myself, especially being self-employed, that I don't waste time. And like a cell phone, I'm starting to timeouts for myself. Just I can't look at this phone again until 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or just push things out of the way, or not be in the same room with me or something. Just has to be some sort of separation, because I noticed that, I'm spending a lot more time looking at this stupid screen. And what am I looking at? Nothing. Most of the time, it's nothing.
It's actively shortening your attention span while it's
Absolutely.
Yes.
So again, it's training humans to think differently. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest danger that we have.
Okay.
Yeah. Something else I'd like to bring up that's kind of along the same lines as that, it kind of leads into it, is, there's this whole new level of accountability that's going on with cell phones since we've been able to start taking pictures and, more importantly, record video. How largely has that impacted the things that we hear about, how quickly information spreads, because this whole, police brutality is one thing, cops shooting people, now
I got it on my cell phone.
Yeah, now it's being more widely spread, and it's now becoming a hot topic because we're hearing about it, and not just because we're hearing about it, but because there's actual proof behind it.
Yeah.
It's undeniable proof.
Documented proof.
Yes. So, how much has that impacted how we operate as a human being, No longer can you just say, well, this fool said this when you weren't listening, Now it's like, well, here's the video of this person doing this.
Yeah, check my Instagram or whatever.
Right.
Or here's a Snapchat to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the accountability is a good thing. But I when, even back as far as the Rodney King issues of that's being on video, and, and when that happened, and later on as cell phones started to come in and stuff and people started doing that, I thought, man, this is, to me, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I thought it was a cool addition to our existence, because now we can hold some people accountable, but it doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't seem to matter, especially in America. We're now Trumpized. You can say anything you want.
Fake news.
Fake news. Everything's fake news. Everything's fake. Everything's a lie. And you're talking about a society who has learned what that person learned to get where he's at is, no matter what happens to you, even if there's actual valid proof, a video of you saying, my mom's a whore, I'll show it to you. I never said that. You can just say, well, you said just my dad's a blah, blah, blah. You can just make up some other lie, deny it, and then start another story. And it's like, it seems crazy that we have actual proof. Like, to me, seeing all these cops shoot people that are completely, there's some that are like, that was called for. I'm not a anti-police person, but there are times when people who should not have a gun have had a gun and told other people what to do with it.
Yeah.
And killed them. And I would have thought at this point, since we've had all these, there would be a giant change in the policing of America. There has been. It's gotten worse.
And we're more aware of it. We're
more aware of it.
Or it's stayed the same and we're more aware of it. I haven't decided yet which way I feel about that, because maybe we're more aware that...
I think it's the worst, and here's why I say it's worse, because anything that you do in life, like if you say, I'm going to build a motorcycle, what's your budget? I got $80. It's going to be one scary motorcycle, buddy. If I got $50,000, I'm going to have this amazing thing. It'll drive itself. You get what you pay for. And I think one of the things that's going on in this world now is between teachers, police officers and stuff, what people are paid. And a lot of times I've read numerous things online about, and it's online, so who knows if it's true. Fake news. But anyway, I've read lots of reports about police stations that have lots of problems with cops, even though they've had video evidence. That cop, they won't let go of him because they don't have anybody else to hire, or they've only got a budget of X amount. So this cop's already been kicked off of 3 other forces. He doesn't know how to do anything else. When he was making good money as a good cop and screwed it up, now he's got this other job as a cop, And so he's only making 30 grand a year. I mean, the attitude and the type of person that you're getting for that kind of money goes back to get what you pay for. And a lot of this, like, you see these people shooting, and a lot of these people, when I see certain people like do things sometimes in a situation like a cop or something, I'm like, okay, so I will sometimes sit down and see if I can find any information on this person online. And there's a lot of people that do crazy stuff that shouldn't have been where they're at. And the fact that we have proof of it is just like, Jesus, isn't this enough for people to wake up? You saw this guy shoot somebody in Kansas. Don't hire him in Denver.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. We get so inundated with too much information and too many facts.
Yeah.
The people just don't have time or won't put the time in to validate any of it. And we talked about that with the social media stuff and the and all the stories on Facebook that you read that have no. So in that aspect, did the cell phone video help us at all? I mean, it just you kind of came full circle there with like, well, wait a minute, like one kind of
we're more aware of the situation, but we're
more desensitized to it. Because we see so many videos now?
As a society, I feel
we know
like
that's going on, but it's okay.
We are pretty apathetic. We don't care. If it doesn't directly affect us,
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It's a bit like that frog in the water,
Yeah.
He'll feel it after he starts boiling, or he doesn't jump out, right, when he's been sitting in the water.
Right.
Yeah,
it gradually gets hotter and hotter.
Yeah.
By the time it's boiling, it's too late.
Yep.
By the time he realizes he's in boiling water, he's...
Yeah, versus if you throw them in when it's already hot.
Yeah.
I
think comfortably numb at that point.
I think that's what's going on with search engines and cell phone companies monitoring people, their cell phone users. I saw a news report just recently, and I can't think of the channel it was on now, but I'm sure it's easily searchable online. But they took a cell phone that was powered on, and a cell phone that was in airplane mode. And they carried them around the city as they made like laps around the city and hit different places. And then when they got back to home base, they ran it through an intermediary device before powering it on and letting it reach to a network. So as soon as it got on the network, there was this packets of information that were sent to the cell phone carriers that were analysis of where that person went, and they monitor it with this device, and they were able to break down what was sent. And it was a map of where that person moved all throughout the city. They, took record of the rate of speed he was traveling at. And so they knew when he was in a vehicle, they knew when he was walking, and it was broken down by a percentage as to how accurate that assumption was of what that person was doing at that time. So now they've got your behavioral patterns, where you go, where you're at any given time. And I think that's just crazy. It's a
total violation of our privacy.
Totally. Yeah. But we signed the agreement that said, okay, go ahead and do this because I want that cell phone.
And I'm not going to read this whole long EULA anyway, so whatever
These
it says.
last 11 pages, I don't know.
Yeah. It's totally a relinquishing of privacy.
The water's starting to boil.
The water has been boiling. Yeah. I mean, you can add to that boiling pot the all the home listening devices, the Echo and the Alexa, and that's the same thing. The Google Home, all that crap, man. And now Apple has the Home Pod.
So now that we've had these cell phones for the last 20 plus years, can we step away from them?
I don't think we can.
Are we stuck with these devices as a part of our lives for the foreseeable future?
I'm sure our culture wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
In a sense,
I can see it turning into something else. I mean, maybe it progresses to a different thing. Maybe carrying that item is too cumbersome for us.
But you're still going to have something on you that tracks your whereabouts
or in you.
Marks your behaviors as far as where you do business. If you do transactions over your phone, what you're buying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't see how we could ever go back. I mean, even if you just take it down to let's say you don't do any of that other stuff, just the whole keeping in contact with your friends. I mean, shit, Glenn, half the time I don't. The only way I get a hold of you is by shooting you a text message or something. I wouldn't know what you were doing and probably never talk to you again if we didn't have cell phones to get a hold of each other. I don't know where you live. It's like
no one does.
No one knows. Glenn actually doesn't live anywhere. He
might
evaporates
kind of true.
Material. Yeah. So how would I even get a hold of you? And nobody would get a hold of me. Period.
No. Well, I there was about a year or so that I got rid of my cell phone. I decided I'd screw this thing. I don't want it.
Yeah. And how was life?
Awesome. Nobody could get a hold of me. It was like,
well, if you want to be left alone, yeah.
Well, I had a home phone number. You could call. You could leave a message, old school style, and I would get back to you. But I don't like somebody being able to grab me at any moment of the day. I mean, half the time I ignore the damn thing.
Yeah. I mean, it works for some people for sure, but for me, it's like I wouldn't even know what concert I want to see. I mean, I get all my information from little stupid notifications.
But you got to remember, people did live before the cell phone. They knew when concerts were coming. I actually Look how big the Beatles were.
Yeah, really. I actually did a lot less before I had the notifications.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't use the internet or
that's true,
totally cut myself off.
You could just do it at home, yeah. Well, okay, so now that isn't even an option anymore because where are you going to get a dumb phone, as they call it now? I mean, I know there's a few floating around out there, but I mean, there's not that many available. And some of them, and what's worse is some of them are, most of them I think that are available are not even made by good manufacturers. They're just random Chinese, phones that come out and you're like, or that
burners.
Burners, exactly. Or the ones that, they're made for like large buttons and large displays for your grandparents or something, it's like, there's not that even many because they don't want you to have that option, right? They want you to get distracted.
Somebody needs you to have that device.
Hell yeah.
Somebody needs us to have these devices. And the thing, we talked about earlier about how when they first came out, it was $4,000 for this.
Yeah.
I remember the reason that I got into having a cell phone and most of my friends because they made it affordable. They made it cheap.
Yeah.
Cell phones for a little while, especially in the beginning, were not very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, comparison to now,
especially with the
iPhone.
Contracts, I mean, you're $100, $200 for the phone.
And most of the time, when the contracts I had, like my early Singular, I didn't pay for a phone.
There were free phones, lots of free phones. Yeah, there was lots of free phones. There was free phones up until they took them away a couple of years ago. But,
that was only just recently.
Yeah, and which I don't know. They got everybody on these payment plans.
I know, just the last two phones I've had.
Phone.
Yeah. So, no, they got everybody paying full price on these payment plans, which the cell phone companies are loving because they're selling all these phones for buku buck, making profit off the phone now and the service.
Yeah.
But they've all given us unlimited minutes and data now.
Oh wow. Because they could have done that in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's just like turning a dial. Let me turn this up a little more. You want some more?
That's all it is. I mean, it's traffic on a network. That's it. As soon as their network,
they're not putting in new lines every time it goes.
Well, they are. They have to do things to.
I mean, they're upgrading,
bandwidth,
but I'm going to say they're not like, we've got 5G. No, now we're going to have 17 lines on the cord going by your house. They're not adding like. It's not. That's not. I don't know. It's the way the information processing is just. I don't know. I feel like there's been. It's just like the Apple thing, and I feel like it's the same argument too. That they've always had all these things. They just slowly let them out so they can keep selling a different version, different thing.
Yep.
Whatever. I mean, it's just because you buy an iPhone 8 and it has 7 different things on it than the 6 didn't have doesn't mean that they weren't available on the 6. They were just like, well, if we let go of that
trickle technology release effect or whatever.
Is that the trickle down economics?
I don't think that's quite the same thing, but they trickle technology out for sure.
Perfect example of that was the iPhone not having the ability to send picture messages. I mean, it's not because it wasn't out. It was every other cell phone could send picture images, but not this state-of-the-art cell phone that I just spent a bunch of money on.
Yeah.
That perplexed me. I was like, that's when I first started seeing holes in that hole.
Still feeling burnt about that, Joe?
I do feel burnt
like
about
10 years ago. But that's always been Apple's motive or prerogative anyway.
Yeah.
They always trickle out
they don't
things.
Host like what is it? WebMDs.
They won't do WebMD?
Video file.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't tried. I don't do WebMD. I don't want to become a hypochondriac. There's too many things to look up and me find wrong with me.
Oh man,
that's what's wrong with all the other information we're reading all the time.
No, not like the
ways.
website. I mean, like the video.
Really?
or WebM. I'm sorry. WE.
What is that?
I'm sure not saying Web S&M.
S&M? Well, I mean, you can find some S&M videos. It's a file format.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It's like dark
image
website.
Boards, shit like that.
Yeah, well, they choose what they will support and what they won't, and then you got to find some other app that'll let you. And they've done that a number of times over the years. I mean, for a long time they wouldn't support WMA, which who the hell uses WMA anyway? But that was a stab at Microsoft. Like, no, we're not going to support your proprietary format. Why don't you just support ours? And they kind of did that back and forth for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of trying to come full circle. There's a sense of irony here that we kept kind of going back to that I wanted to hit on. I started off this thing saying that we had all mentioned safety reasons why it's good to have the cell phones, right, for whatever you're trying to protect yourself from or have around just in
more
case.
Dangerous.
Exactly, and it seems really ironic that we also listed a whole bunch of things of how of ways that these things increase or decrease safety. I don't know how you want to say that. Make it less safe, right? You're distracted driving. I mean, obviously that makes you. It's like, yes, I have this thing in case I get in an accident. I can call for help. But if I'm using it, I may get in an accident, and I'll need to call for help. You know.
I totally believe that the companies that put these phones out, once the cell phone really got its hooks in society and the world, I mean, now it's starting to get manipulated.
Yeah.
They're seeing it as a tool.
They're seeing it as a tool.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I feel like that's kind of what it was in the beginning, but maybe it was a little bit naive in the beginning. Where
because they didn't know if they could get us hooked.
Yeah, cool technology, or, you can have a mobile phone or mobile communication. I think maybe back then there wasn't that thought, but, I mean, as soon as there was, like, tracking availabilities and things like that, I think, there had to be a skyrocket in the interest of, like, this is a tool. Especially in marketing.
Reminds me of the Chinese social credit system.
Yeah. Sesame credit.
Yeah, Sesame credit. That's what it's called. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do an episode on that soon. That stuff is just too much, and it's tied to the cell phones. I mean, that's going to be their that's going to be their medium for all of this.
That's the thing too. I think the cell phone is the way. When computers first started kind of becoming a thing. Like in the 90s for me. Mm-hmm. I had a computer. I hardly ever touched it because it was at the house. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, the computer.
Turn that on, play Oregon Trail?
Yeah, whatever. Pretty much.
That was like elementary school days for me, man.
But it's made the cell phone it's been inundated because it's so convenient.
Yeah.
I would never back then. I was like, I'll look it up, whatever, and just like anything else. But it's the fact that you can, just like. I see people in bars arguing all the time. And they're like, "Oh, well, Google it," and it introduced another type of a type of existence that we have where everybody's like going to the accountable thing, where it's like this phone is this window to prove that you're right or make a statement or blah blah blah. It's like I think people grasp it as a freedom thing for you to if you're an artist, you can express yourself with it, you can share things, images, things like that. But it's at the same time it's in the opposite direction too, where people are tracking you and using your movements to sell you products and everything. But it's just crazy how. I think when it became the computer in your hand, and that's how I always translated it, that's when the trouble started.
Yeah, there's so many pluses and minuses on both sides.
Absolutely.
Of that, I love being able to answer all the questions that I look up every day in my life on this damn cell phone, having Google it.
But at the same time, so and I've talked about this before, Google, somebody owns that. Oh, somebody writes that information, just like Wikipedia and everything else.
They're Skynet for sure.
There's Skynet. So is it, in the grand scheme of things, as the great distraction that it is it a way to tie everybody to this certain information? Because when the internet came out, it was like, we're going to have all this information that everybody can know, so nobody can hide. Well, it's a source of media, so who says it's not been controlled from the very beginning?
Oh, yeah.
What are you telling you what to read, what to think, how to believe.
Yeah.
Manipulating what search results pop up or filter through.
It's like Google. I mean, we're training people to think. I hear people all the time, Google it, man. Oh, Google it, bro. Google it, Google it, Google it, Google it, Google it. Shoot me, okay? Just because it's Google doesn't mean it's factual.
True.
And so we have given away the belief that if it came from Google, it's not factual.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because there could be any number of other websites that exist out there that don't even show up in a Google search, and we wouldn't know about it because who uses Bing.com or Ask.com?
Because they don't have as much money as Google, and it goes back to that. We've placed ourselves in that position. Yeah. You don't even have a choice. When I first started messing around with the internet, you had a choice. You didn't always Google. You had
there was no Google.
There was no Google, but
Netscape
you had
Navigator.
Netscape Navigator. So you had all these options, and things as they grew, that just became an option. But they just monopolized that situation. So they put themselves, just like media and television did back in the day. Yep. They jam themselves in there, so they're the forefront between what you see, the information. They're the gatekeeper for your information. Yep. You can have your smartphone and you can look up all our stuff, but we're going to control what you read.
Which is in part why the dark web is so appealing to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want material to be filtered.
Yeah.
I can
even
judge.
even if it's absolutely crazy bizarre.
Yes. I mean, I can decide not to look at something.
You're an adult with a brain, exactly. Yeah.
I don't need somebody else to say, "Oh no, this isn't appropriate for you to look
Censored.
at." Yeah,
Censored.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing that they're already doing. I mean, there's Google and all these other things. They have control about what you can see, what you can read, and I think that goes back to the theory too of like, you have this cell phone, which is your ultimate gateway to every piece of information you could ever want to know.
Yeah.
Just Google it, bro.
Yeah.
Anything you need is right there at your hands. You have this empowerment feeling of you're so smart and sophisticated because you can know anything in 2 blips.
Right.
Doesn't
Anything
mean
that you're allowed to know.
Yeah, or it doesn't mean what you're reading is true. It goes back to the Skynet theory, and that's what I've always felt about the internet and cell phones in general. It's a Skynet situation where all this information is being filtered. It's written before you read it. If you're reading something, it was written by somebody for a reason. Mm-hmm. A book's the same way. Anything print media is the same way. Yeah. Anything you read online or an article. Somebody had to edit that, and somebody had to write that. So what was their opinion or objective?
Yep. All right, guys, we're about out of time. Thank you all for listening, and if you get an opportunity, put your cell phone down for a bit and enjoy life without it. Till next time. Show notes and other info can be found at our website, greatdistraction.com. The Great Distraction is listed in iTunes, and we greatly appreciate it when our listeners take the time to look us up and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps our show grow and motivates us to continue producing content. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so using the email address, greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com, or via our website. We're always interested in hearing any thoughts, comments, or questions from our listeners. Keeping up on the latest from us can be done in several different ways. You can add us to your favorite RSS feed tracker. The link is available on our website or in iTunes. Or you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Great Distraction, one word, no space. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the support.